huge consumer cost for Americans. As you mentioned early on, well below $3 a gallon right now and trending downwards. There are a number of stations in the heartland of America with $1.99 signs flying today. That's simply impossible without the leadership and changes you've brought. Now, of course, you can go to California, where the average price of gasoline is between $4.50 and $5 a gallon today in California. That's just bad political leaders there and bad policies in California.
And taxes.
And taxes.
Taxes they charge on gasoline are just insane, terrible.
And electricity prices is a very parallel story, but it's a bigger moving ship, so the changes are a little bit slower. But Americans are outraged at a roughly 30% rise in the average price of electricity across this country. But everything we are doing together is going to reverse that. Not just stop the rises, but start a downward trajectory in electricity prices. And I can say that with confidence, not because we think these policies will work. We know these policies will work, and I'll get to that in a second. We're going to stop closing power plants. We've already done that, of course. Stop closing the coal power plants and natural gas plants that were shut down. We've got over 30 gigawatts of generators just sitting there today, not allowed to run. Well, of course, we're fixing that immediately. We're going to bring on from our existing grid tens of gigawatts more capacity that'll drive down the cost of electricity. But if we look at the last 5 years to see what works and what doesn't work, the most Trump-aligned policies in the electricity sector were by, no surprise, one of your cabinet members, Secretary Burgum, for 8 years governor of North Dakota. Over the last 5 years, production and demand for electricity in North Dakota grew 35%. Think what data center boom's going to do, and what happened? Electricity prices went down. Didn't rise slowly, they actually went down those 5 years. That's the answer. Trump-aligned energy policies increased demand for electricity. Nebraska and Texas, more Trump-aligned states, had significant growth in demand for electricity. They had electricity price rises, but well below the price of inflation. Unfortunately, Biden brought all of us a lot of inflation. If you look at the other end of the spectrum, California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maryland, I could go on. What happened in those states? Policies and politicians that forced the building of unreliable electricity generation, which requires new infrastructure and transmission lines. And what happened?
Vamos a ver qué.
They produced less electricity than they did 5 years ago. A lot of spending money and less electricity. What does that mean? Of course, much faster rises in the price of electricity. Blue states have had 1.5 times faster rise in electricity prices than red states. Red states alone, less than inflation. We need to bring those policies. You are bringing those policies to the national level. We hope the blue states will come along with us, but your policies are going to start the decline of electricity prices nationwide under your leadership. Just bringing back common sense. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this team. For people here who are focused on winning, special thanks to
En una hora balsita, 15 minutos. Va a la baja. 5 minutos también, ¿o no? Sí. Que sean FDG 15 minutos acá. Minutos. Y aparte en 15 minutos nos dejó un change in state igual. Acá. Cinco minutos igual hay change in state. Acá. 15 minutos para 5 minutos está este FDG, lo está respetando. Y en un minuto. En un minuto. Que el tema. Esto no es una call, ¿verdad? Casi. En un minuto igual está dejando una inversión acá. Mm, que realmente en un minuto vamos bajista. Pero sería súper bueno. O sea, sería excelente que el precio baje, deje aquí un FDG y haga un change in state. Un retest. Y después ya sirve para ir hasta la sell side. Aunque creo que igual sería un trade igual de hartos puntos. 5 minutos. Y esto sería un buen punto de break-even. O incluso sería como. Se podría usar como TP. Sí. Eso sería como la sell side mayor y está como la. Porque también coincide con el horario de apertura, entonces puede ser un punto de reversión fuerte al alza. Esto podría ser un buen trade en mi consideración, la verdad.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, you're exactly right. We are saving this country. We're doing it one Main Street at a time, and we're doing it at record speed and at record levels. Under your leadership, small business optimism, according to the U.S. Chamber Index for small businesses, has reached an all-time high in the history of that index. So on Main Street, the economy is coming back thanks to your leadership, thanks to getting Biden inflation under control.
Súper chico ese FDG.
Number one concern right now is finding skilled labor, and that's why Secretary Chavez Durimer and I have entered into an MOU to speed that workforce to small businesses that under this administration are now at record levels. 36 million small businesses have now taken on board for the first time in the SBA's history $100 billion. That's $45 billion in small business
Yo considero igual esto es como un trade de interior-exterior. Está en la zona mayor de venta. Reaccionó al FG 15 minutos. Dejó una inversión. Va bajista en 15 minutos. En 5 minutos también hizo un change in state de acá. Y eso. Lo único es que en un minuto aún no hace un change in state, se podría decir. Aunque acá arriba se puede buscar uno, pero en lo último que ha dejado no ha dejado ningún change in state. Entonces un trade bien confirmado sería como podría ser quizá un change in state acá, un FDG aquí, y ese podría ir por este mínimo o incluso más abajo, pero llegar más abajo ya es más difícil, ya que tiene una fuerte zona de resistencia que son estos precios de apertura de 9.30 y 8.30. Entonces si uno va por un trade que sea como bien abajo, por ejemplo hasta acá, que es bastante, tendría que sí o sí mandar un break-even aquí, porque ahí se podría reversionar.
You came in with a very clear mandate of taking on the rampant weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community and federal law enforcement, experiencing yourself, the deep state abusing their power as they have against you, your family, and so many of the American people. Bring out accountability truly for those who have abused their power,
Está hablando Donald, están entrevistando a Donald Trump, así que puede que se consolide el precio.
For transparency, declassification, and exposing these abuses of power by these deep state actors. We've declassified over 500,000 documents, many of which had never been seen before by the American people, put them online to bring about this level of transparency. We formed a weaponization working group, again, to be able to go after a lot of these abuses of power that have never seen the light of day, to support the accountability that under Pam Bondi
Incluso
Department of Justice is coming about.
acá arriba igual se podría
Bring about reforms to the intelligence
intentar un
community to make sure
corto.
that
Voy a dejar como todas las ideas que se me ocurren
an efficient and
medio marca.
focused workforce that's really
Corto
looking to bring
acá.
about the priorities you have laid out in ensuring our country's security. And lastly, Mr. President, working with many of our partners here around the table is going after these domestic threats. We have threats coming from both Islamist ideology as well as Islamist terrorists, foreign terrorist organizations, and those who seek to do harm to the American people, many of whom were let in across our borders under the previous administration. We are focused on these tasks and this imperative for the American people, and just appreciate your leadership, Mr. President, in empowering us to be able to conduct this service. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas. It's like Merry Christmas. You say it loud and clear. Thank you.
Mr. President, your team at the Trump EPA has been crushing it all year to fix the big mess that we inherited and deliver amazing results for the American people. I've had the opportunity to visit all 50 states since confirmation earlier this year, and to hear from real people where they meet, where they live, and to bring their great ideas and their asks back to us to be able to deliver for them. At the Trump EPA, we have proven that you can both protect the environment and grow the economy. On the environmental front, since you were sworn in earlier this year, we have averaged a big environmental accomplishment every single day. On the 100th day, the 200th day, the 300th day of your presidency, each time we released a list of our top 100 environmental accomplishments. That has included a historic LA wildfire cleanup that you ordered us to complete in record time, which we did, and the Army Corps, under the leadership of our great Secretary of War, did their part as well. The federal government completely did all of the work needed to allow these residents and businesses to be able to rebuild, but poor leadership at the local and state level, unfortunately, is still resulting in these property owners unable to rebuild, and it's wrong. We also were able to reach an agreement with Mexico to be able to implement a plan to permanently end a decades-old raw sewage crisis on the southern border with Mexico. And Secretary Rubio and his team, Chris Landau, Ambassador Johnson, they've been amazing to get that done. On the deregulatory front, we have proudly launched a massive blitz that amounts to the largest deregulatory effort by any agency in the history of the United States. To put some perspective on it, in 1 year, at one agency, we will do more deregulation than entire presidencies have done across all agencies. It's incredible. You could go back across 4-year terms to 8-year terms. You've never seen this much deregulation. One agency, 1 year. In fact, when finalized, the proposed rescission of the 2009 Obama EPA endangerment finding amounts to the largest deregulatory action in the history of the United States of America. From fixing the agency's definition of waters of the United States, which is important for our farmers, our ranchers, and other landowners, to the effort to end electric vehicle mandates and promote consumer choice, eliminating regulations designed to eliminate entire sectors of our energy economy. We're thinking big and we're delivering big. We have reduced terrible derailments on diesel exhaust fluid systems. We're getting water moving faster, new pipelines and power plants built, and we're helping to unleash energy dominance. Mr. President, on the operational front, we have significantly reduced the size of the agency workforce, and we are accomplishing more with less. It's all about priorities, and our focus is on fulfilling our statutory obligations, helping to fast-track project approvals that were taking way too long, and closely following the law, as well as key Supreme Court decisions like Loperbright to overturn the Chevron doctrine. We inherited massive backlogs that we have been eliminating all year long. We've been implementing your executive order to end COVID-era remote work. We consolidated real estate, canceled expensive media subscriptions, and closed a Biden EPA museum that none of you knew even existed. I'm sure none of you actually visited. To put it another way, in 2024, the Biden EPA obligated and spent over $60 billion in 1 year, an agency with an operational budget of about $10 billion a year. In their own words, caught on camera, they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic, wasting precious tax dollars to pay off well-connected Obama and Biden officials. And they were doing it without any apology or regret. The Biden EPA, in fact, was amending grant agreements just days before you came into office to reduce agency oversight. But this year, 2025, at the Trump EPA, similar theme that you'll hear from everyone around this table. With our actions canceling wasteful grants and implementing other measures just mentioned, we have saved $30 billion. They spent over $60 billion. We have saved over $30 billion. The bottom line, by the way, is that the Green New scam is dead. It's a new day at the EPA where we will protect the environment and grow the economy. We will deliver on the Trump mandate every day. And we will fight with just one constituency front of mind, and that is the American people. Thank you, Mr. President, for being willing to take a bullet for this country. And if you were to ask me what I'm grateful for, whether it's a Thanksgiving, it's a Christmas, a Hanukkah, a New Year's, any time of year, the fact that this president, after 4 years serving in office, he could have just left it in the rearview mirror and went on to really enjoy retirement. But he is willing to take a bullet for all of you tuning in at home because he believes in his flag, our freedom, our liberties, and to save the greatest country in the history of the world. So I'm grateful this holiday season for you, Mr. President. You're willing to take a bullet for all of us, and by all of us, it's the American public.
Thank you.
Mr. President, good morning, everyone. Well, in spite of the fact that your charge to me is to fire myself, we've really been incredibly hard at work making sure that we can return education to the states. And as I sit and listen to all the emergencies that we are addressing in this country, from the economy to our borders to everything that we're doing, I would say, sir, that if we do not fix education in our country with this hard reset that you are expecting, I think the greatest national emergency we could face is our education. Because if we are not going to educate our children, we're going to continue to fall behind the rest of the world. When there are only 30% of 12th graders, 8th graders, and 4th graders that can read at proficiency level, that is an incredibly harsh statement to make about our country. And you told me when you first...
Si esta de las 5 minutos cierra abajo este cuerpo de Lola, bajo esta línea que marqué, buena señal de dirección en venta. Y le quedan 2 minutos todavía. En 15 minutos pareciera que está respetando bien el FG. Y en 5 minutos también respetó el Changing State que había formado antes. Aquí.
handle the NOAA program and the Perkins grants to make sure it works. I call these, these are programs, pilot programs that we're putting out there. And if these are going to work, we will be able to permanently transfer these programs to other agencies. They're working like a charm.
È harto un trade acá arriba.
Best people in education. It still operates under the budget of the Department of Education and under the management of the Department of Education, but working with Lori's personnel. And when I hear pushback on that to say, well, how can this possibly work to take education and put it in labor? Let's be efficient. One example, in order to draw down on a lot of the grants that they are helping us with, we're using their grant system. The grant system at the Department of Education is like held together with bubble gum and rubber bands. And it did not interact with any other agency. Now, we have this really smooth operation already in labor. So that has prompted us to sign also other interagency agreements, 2 more with labor, 1 with HHS, 1 with the Department of State, and we'll be moving other programs, but these are proof of concept. Let's make sure they're working and working smoothly before we ask Congress to codify these permanent moves. So that's kind of in the world of K through 12, what we're looking at right now, but in the world of higher education, as Attorney General Bondi mentioned, we've been working really very hard to make sure that we've got anti-Semitism and DEI out of our universities, and put some pretty stiff fines on, worked some good deals. I've enjoyed working with Harmeet, who is just an incredible negotiator. So we're bringing all of that to bear as well. So I can say, sir, that we are moving to return education to the states and to bring the level of education back up, making sure our students can read, are reintroducing the science of reading in schools. And going into next year, I can honestly say that we've got a lean machine operating at the Department of Education. It's only half the workforce of when we started, and we're more efficient, and I think we're going to see better results as we move into next year. So thank you for this incredible opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, during this holiday season for empowering us at HHS, me, Dr. McCary, Jay Bhattacharya, and Dr. Oz, to change the trajectory of this agency towards public health in a way from the tradition of serving the mercantile interests of the medical industrial complex and the big pharmaceutical companies. 2 weeks ago, we ended, under your leadership, a 20-year war on women by removing the black box warnings from hormone replacement therapy. The medical cartel was telling women that hormone replacement therapy during menopause was dangerous for them. In fact, here's what the science said. It diminishes the risk of fatal heart attacks by 25%, cardiac disease by 50%, Alzheimer's by 35%, bone fractures by 50 to 60%. It improves appetite, it improves sleep, it improves energy, it improves happiness. There are tens of millions of women in this country who have been deprived of that therapy because of the scientific malpractice by the medical cartel. We are now remedying that, and this remedy will now be available to all women who want it during one of the most difficult transitions in their lives. MFN is one of our greatest accomplishments. It would not have happened without you. You were the only person who believed in it. You drove us to get it done. We've now made agreements with the 5 biggest pharmaceutical companies. We have 12 more in the lineup to make agreements. By the time this administration leaves office, 95% of the drugs in this country we will have the lowest prices of any nation in the developed world. Americans are already getting the benefits from these. These companies are already lowering these prices dramatically, as you noticed. And then this week, Howard at Department of Commerce and Jameson at the U.S. Trade Representative made a bargain with Great Britain to raise their drug prices in conformance with your promise that the Europeans would raise theirs to counterbalance us lowering ours, and therefore we would keep intact the ecosystem of innovation and protect innovation. first asked me to take this job, one of the first contacts we made was with the leading economics professor, health economics professor at Harvard. And we asked him what's the one innovation that we could do that would most dramatically improve the health care experience for the average American. And he said there's no contest, it's to get rid of prior authorization. Thanks to your leadership, we were able to convene the largest insurance companies in this country and do something that every administration, every Congress has promised for the past 30 years. We actually got it done. We convened the insurance companies representing 280 million Americans and got them to agree, most of them by January of 2026, for 2 months from now, to remove prior authorization for most of their procedures, for all the procedures we want them removed from. And that means that American patients at the point of care will be able to get an answer immediately. If your doctor says you need knee surgery, you will know before you leave that doctor's office whether your insurance company will pay for it or not. Similarly, healthcare records, the tech industry has refused to share healthcare records. You asked us to change that. We convened the 60 biggest tech companies at a conference that you presided over about 2 months ago. We now did a secondary conference which 400 leading companies all come in and agreed to remove any kind of blockages where individual Americans could get their own health care. Americans own their health care records, yet they were not able to access them. And if you lived in New Jersey and you moved to Oregon and you got injured, you went to a hospital, you would have to spend maybe 45 minutes filling out forms on a clipboard because your doctors there could not get your health care records, they couldn't get your blood type, your allergies, all the things that they ought to know immediately so they can save your life. Now that has all changed, and all these companies now have agreed to remove all the blocks on sharing healthcare records. Every American will have their healthcare records available on their cell phones. And it's already happening. In the last 6 months, there have been over 100 times the number of healthcare records shared by hospitals and during the entire previous administration. On deregulation, HHS proudly is now leading the pack, and thank you for your help on that, Russ. But today we announced the revocation of the nursing home rule, which was overburdening rural areas across this country, Indian reservations, with regulations that were going to destroy the nursing home industry in those communities. And that is going to be a $25 billion savings. Those are some of the things that we're doing because of your leadership, President Trump. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, Bob, very much. Great job.
Well, Mr. President, you've assembled an incredibly talented group here. If you took a look at this group compared to any Fortune 500 leadership team, any group of startup folks, I mean, this is an amazing group in the breadth of what's being accomplished. And the timing couldn't be better because with your leadership and vision, you set us up for this age of abundance as we head into next year, the 250th anniversary of this country. And what are we heading into that year? As we've talked around the table, you've heard about massively lower taxes, massively lower regulation, abundant energy, record capital investment coming in, job growth. I mean, we are set up to really have something to celebrate next year. And I just again want to say thank you to everybody around the table. You gave us one big assignment in Interior. Of course, Interior, the largest balance sheet in the world in the Department of Interior. If it was a standalone company, 500 million acres of surface, 700 million acres of subsurface, over 3 billion of offshore from Guam to the Virgin Islands. And you said, we got to take care of that balance sheet. We got to develop those resources. And what have we done across that? Producing record amounts of oil, record amounts of gas. And again, we set out with a goal, energy diplomacy, sell energy to our friends and allies. We're exporting a record amount of energy to all of our friends and allies around the world. That's helping do that. And you're giving a gift to America as we head into this. You're giving us peace abroad, and you're giving us prosperity at home. That bodes so well for our country. One small little gift that we're giving to all Americans from one teeny part of Interior, which is the national parks, is that not only are we keeping prices low for all American citizens, offering 10 free days for our national parks next year to coincide with our holidays, but also a $100 surcharge for non-residents. That is going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars for helping restore and preserve all of our best parks. So as we close out, Lynn, I want to also say a big celebration going on here in Washington, D.C. We've been thrilled to be part of the National Park Service, the U.S. Park Police, part of this great effort across a number of us on making D.C. safe and beautiful. This will be the safest and most beautiful capital in the world. We are doing so many things, whether it's hundreds of homeless camps, thousands of graffiti sites, cleaning up ponds and fountains, preparing this thing. The United States is never going to be performing better economically. It's never going to be looking better, just like the White House has never looked better, all because of your vision leadership. So again, thank you, sir. You've given an incredible Christmas gift to Americans by setting us up for an incredible 250th anniversary.
That's very nice. Thank you, Dan, very much. Marco?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, this is a very talented team, as you've seen, and as you know, because you picked every single one. It's on you deserve tremendous credit for doing that. It's an honor to be in this role. It's also an honor to be involved in and be a witness to.
Está mostrando como el precio más intenciones como de bajar que de
And it's transformational because for the first
subir.
time in a long time, we have a president who basically puts
Aunque cuando habla Trump siempre se como que se consolida.
And that may sound weird to people, like, of course you always do. No, that hasn't always been the case until about a year ago. And I think we've all witnessed, in our own respective spaces, how in every interaction the president has with the world, the goal he has in mind is very simple. Does what you want us to do, or is it what or is it going to make us stronger? Is it going to make us richer? Is it going to make us safer? If it is, he's for it. If it's not, he's against it. If something's going to make America weaker or poorer or less safe, the president's going to be against it. And every single thing he has done in our foreign policy has been driven by the American people in mind. And I can go down the list. Why has he focused on mass migration? It's very simple, because no country is safe if you can just walk in without us knowing who you are into your country. We've seen the destruction that's wreaking, not just in our own country, but the impact that it's having in Europe and in many other parts of the world. You talk about trade deals and the trade situation has been involved in. People, all this reporting on it, it's very simple. The president views the last 40 years as an era of which American workers and American farmers have been ripped off. They've been ripped off, and what he's saying is we want to have a trade with the world, but there has to be a trade in which American businesses and American workers and the products they make and what American farmers grow and produce has a fair shot to be sold around the world. On issue after issue, that's been the case. You talk about foreign aid reforms. This is not our money. This is taxpayer money. When the president said we're going to do foreign aid, but we're going to do foreign aid for countries that are aligned with the United States and in a way that doesn't waste the taxpayers' money. Mr. President, you deserve tremendous credit for that. Many of us, the Vice President, by the way, I want to acknowledge, has played an extraordinary role in our foreign policy, and he too has been a witness to all of this as it's been occurring, and he's been a big part of it as well. You talk about NATO. The president's not against NATO. He went to NATO and basically said, look, you guys, we're paying all the money, and he got them to do the 5% commitment, which everybody said was never going to happen and it was impossible. Everything this president does is driven by the American people. Whether you don't have to agree with the actual move, but understand the motivation. The motivation is always you, the American people, and what's good for you, for your family, for the country, and for our aspect of our foreign policy. For the first time in probably 4 decades, the American foreign policy is driven by what is good for America and Americans. Whether it makes us safer and stronger and more prosperous, if it is, he's for it. If it doesn't, he's against it. And that sort of clarity is transformational. I close with this, and I know I'm last, so I wanted to be fast, but there was a lot to cover. I do want to say this is the most wonderful and magical time of the year. By that, of course, I'm referring to the college football playoffs. And I just want to say that as a point of personal privilege, and I'm a Florida Gator, but if the University of Miami gets screwed out of the college football playoffs after going 10-2 and beating Notre Dame, the whole thing should be scrapped, and you're going to have to take over next year.
Thank you all very much. I hope it wasn't too long, but it was very concise, and we've done a lot. This group has done a lot. Everybody at this table has done a fantastic. And Susie, thank you for doing a great job as our chief of staff. First female chief of staff in the history of our country, which is pretty amazing when you think of it, right? And she's the best. Thank you very much. Great job. So after that, do you want to ask any questions?
Mr. President, there's been a lot of speculation about who the next Fed chairman could possibly be. You said you had somebody in mind. How many names were you given on the final list? And does that person currently work on the board at Fed Reserve?
Well, I'd say that we probably looked at 10. And Scott interviewed some people that I didn't know, but he knew. And a lot of people were involved in the process, actually. Howard was involved. But I think we probably looked at 10, and we have it down to 1.
I want to ask you about Elon Musk, if I could. You talked about Elon Musk. You had him in dinner here in the White House. Is he now back in your circle of friends?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, I like Elon a lot. He was a very, he really helped during the election with his endorsement. He felt strongly. But we had one problem. You know, I didn't want to have everybody have to have an electric car. And he makes electric cars. And, yeah, I think we get along well.
No, on affordability.
Mr. President, thank you.
Yeah, one more. Yeah, when you talk about affordability, is going forward, are the American people, do you believe, getting impatient with the reforms that you're making? They've talked about it's about.
I think they're getting fake news from guys like you. Look, affordability is a hoax that was started by Democrats who caused the problem of pricing. And they didn't end it when, look, they lost in a landslide. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote. We won everything. You take a look at districts, it was 2,750 to 500, 525. Because that was an affordability problem. We brought it down. Look at energy. Look at the gasoline price. That's like the simplest, and it's the biggest. Because if energy comes down, everything comes down. That's the way it works. We're going to be at 250. You said 199 in some places in the country, right? You said it. I didn't. And they won't check you. They'll check me. So I'd like to use your number. 199 a gallon. Unthinkable. If you go back a year and a half ago, it's unthinkable. So now we're bringing the prices down, way down. Beef is coming down now. We've done certain magic, and beef is coming down. But we inherited horrible prices. We inherited really the worst inflation in history. We inherited that. When I came in, that's what he had. And we fixed inflation. And we fixed almost everything, if you want to know the truth, including 8 wars. We got 1 to go, but including 8 wars. But when they always say, I watched today where they have a race going on right now in Tennessee, and this woman goes, affordability, affordability. They're the ones that caused the problem. The prices were way high. We're bringing the prices down. But they're like scam artists. You know, they're I call them con men and women. They come out, they say affordability, like, oh, I see price. We're going to get prices down still further. But we brought them down from the prices they cost. The reason that they had the highest inflation in the history of our country is because they had the highest prices. But we brought them down, and now we have normal inflation. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, thank you so much for taking questions with your assembled cabinet. I wanted to clarify something that you had said on Sunday regarding the boat strikes near Venezuela. You had said that you didn't know if the second strike on that one boat had happened, but you wouldn't have wanted it. Now that your administration has acknowledged that it happened, do you support that second strike? And Mr. Secretary, I wanted to clarify something you had said in an interview back in September, I believe on Fox News. You said that you had watched that strike live on television. In real time, did you know that there were survivors after the initial strike?
Well, look, all I know is this. Every boat that you see get blown up, we save 25,000 on average lives, 25,000 lives. They've been sending enough of this horrible fentanyl and other things like cocaine and other things, but fentanyl right now is the leader of the pack, to kill our entire nation. Because a little speck on the head of a pin can kill somebody. It's very dangerous stuff. I know so many people where their sons were drug addicts. They had one little sample and they died. They died. They couldn't believe it. As far as the attack is concerned, I still haven't gotten a lot of information because I rely on Pete. But to me, it was an attack. It wasn't one strike, two strikes, three strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat. But I would say this, they had a strike. I hear the gentleman that was in charge of that is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person. I'll let Pete speak about him. But Pete was satisfied. Pete didn't know about second attack having to do with two people. I guess Pete would have to speak to it. I can say this, I want those boats taken out. And if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea. And there's very little coming in by sea. I think we've knocked out over 90% of it. There's very little, and I understand that. There's very little. We're saving hundreds of thousands of lives with those pinpoint attacks. It's an amazing thing when you see a boat going along, and a lot of the press would like to say they're not, you see the boat, they're not maybe drugs. You see these boats. First of all, who has 5 engines on the back of a boat going in weird directions and loaded up with lots of white containers? Their bags are things. No, they've done an amazing job, and Peter's done an amazing job. Pete, you could probably better answer the question.
No, you're spot on, sir. I think you got to start with the baseline, which Marco laid out, everybody's laid out. We've got 20 million people invading our country over 4 years. We don't know where they're coming from. That includes Tren de Aragua and cartels and violent criminals. They bring drugs, and you mentioned it, Mr. President, poisoning, an intentional poisoning of the American people, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. So the president had the courage to designate these cartels as designated terrorist organizations. Now, a number of us here served in the military and spent 20 years fighting terrorists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS on the other side of the world. How do you treat Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Do you arrest them and treat them, pat them on the head and say, don't do that again? Or do you end the problem directly by taking a lethal, kinetic approach? And that's the way President Trump has authorized the War Department to look at these cartels. And I wish everybody could be in the room watching our professionals like Mitch Bradley, Admiral Mitch Bradley, and others at JSOC and SOCOM and other commanders. The deliberative process, the detail, the rigorous, the intel, the legal, the evidence-based way that we're able to, with sources and methods that we can't reveal here, that make sure that every one of those drug boats is tied to a designated terrorist organization. We know who's on it, what they're doing, what they're carrying. All these white bales are not Christmas gifts from Santa. This is drugs running on 4-motor fast boats or submarines that we've also struck. No one's fishing on a submarine. And I have empowered them to make that call. Now, the first couple of strikes, as you would, as any leader would want, you want to own that responsibility. So I said, I'm going to be the one to make the call after getting all the information and make sure it's the right strike. That was September 2nd. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into that, building that case and understanding that. A lot of people providing information. I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. right call. We have his back, and the American people are safer because narco-terrorists know you can't bring drugs through the water and eventually on land if necessary to the American people. We will eliminate that threat, and we're proud to do it.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike? You personally?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
And Mr. Secretary, on the second strike, you said it happened more than an hour after the first. Did I hear it
I couldn't tell
correctly?
you the exact amount of time.
Minutes? You went off the rails, is what you're saying.
I already stated my answer quite clearly.
So remember this, we lost last year, I think it was more than that, but, people don't like saying it because they always said 100,000, 115,000, numbers we've been hearing for years. So we lost last year more than 200,000 people, dead people, ruined families beyond the 200,000. And those 200,000, that family will never be the same. But these people have killed over 200,000 people, actually killed over 200,000 people last year. And those numbers are down. Those numbers are down. They're way down. And they're down because we're doing these strikes, and we're going to start doing those strikes on land too. The land is much easier. It's much easier. And we know the routes they take. We know everything about them. We know where they live. We know where the bad ones live. And we're going to start that very soon too.
Mr. President, thank you so much, Mr. President.
You know what, when we start that, we're going to drive those numbers down so low. And then you're going to have families be able to live without the fear of their son or daughter just having a pill to have a little fun and ending up dying within a period of 60 seconds, right? No, we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let it continue to happen. What Biden did to this country by allowing all these people, and I call them animals in many cases, I think they're animals, to come into our country and destroy our country and let all those drugs pour in. Let people just walk across the border like it was nothing. You look at them, a lot of them, and they say, oh, let's not discriminate. I'm not talking about color. I'm just talking about you look into the eyes of some of these people. We're smart. And you see a killer. Come on in. Just come on in. 11,888 murderers. Many of them committed more than one murder. He allowed them into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. But he also allowed drugs to come in at record numbers. And hundreds of thousands of people a year died. And we're taking those son of a bitches out,
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for taking our questions. I think this is the most transparent demonstration I ever seen.
I'm impressed by these people. I'll tell you, how strong are you? You've been holding it for 2 hours. There are very few physically. There are very few people that do. I'm very proud of you. I have no idea who you are, but you're strong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, last week, militia groups in Iraq attacked the Christian region's gas field, the largest gas field, which even the U.S. companies invested in the energy sector in the Christian region. And the Christian Prime Minister requested the United States to provide them some sorts of means and defense system to defending their civilian infrastructure and U.S. investment in the Christian region. Are you willing to providing them this support? And if I add this question, tomorrow the United States is going to open and inaugurate one of the
Speak louder.
Yeah, of course.
Is that possible? Boy, you're the most gentle, beautiful voice, but you're a very gentle person. Go ahead. Just take fewer words and louder.
Yeah. My first question, last week, the Iraqi militia groups attacked one of the largest gas fields in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, which even the U.S. companies have invested in these gas fields.
Yeah.
And then,
Are you from Iraq?
I'm from Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan.
Okay.
Yeah. Working for Houda Media Network. And the Kurdistan region prime minister, he requested the United States to providing them some sorts of defense system to defending these gas fields and U.S. investment in the Kurdistan region. Are you willing to helping them?
Well, we're going to look at it. I heard about it, and frankly. It wasn't at the top of my list. It's a very unusual question, I think, but I assume you're from the area, and to you it's a very important question, and to me it is also, because people are being killed. I will say this, Iraq has been much different in terms of us than they were prior to us taking out the nuclear capability of Iran. You know, Iran has gone down many, many steps in terms of its fear factor. They were the bully of the Middle East, and they're really not the bully of the Middle East anymore. And Iraq was being bullied by Iran. You know? We had a president that thought it was brilliant to blow them up, and they blew them up, and all of a sudden, instead of having a power that was basically equal to Iran, they had Iran ruling the Middle East for a long period of time. But Iraq, from the day we hit them with those B-2 bombers and knocked out and obliterated, because CNN said, well, maybe it wasn't total obliteration. Well, it turned out it was totally obliteration. It was every single one of those missiles hit its target. It was actually amazing, but it was wiped out, totally wiped out. I will tell you, Iraq has been a much friendlier place. They talk to us. The Prime Minister actually nominated me along with about 78 other countries for the Nobel Prize. I'm the only one that was nominated by almost 100 countries that didn't get it. But that's okay. But I saved a lot of lives. I saved a lot of lives. But Iraq nominated us for the Nobel Prize, and that was a great honor. You know, we didn't expect that from Iraq. Iraq has been a much
Oye, el precio de tomate alto, po.
since
Esa liquidez.
taking out of Iran.
Em,
Yeah, let's get to another question. And here we go. This guy's a beauty. Go ahead. No, because I've been spending too much time with you. I mean, we're spending a lot of time.
igual le quedan estos altos de aquí y este alto de 15 minutos.
Open and transparent. This has to be the most transparent administration in history. We spent a lot of time answering your questions and giving you a lot of good, good results.
Aunque igual he estado medio...
Good results. But no, I don't. I will have after I leave here. I don't know. All I can tell you is that we're trying very hard to save 25 to 30,000 people, mostly men, mostly soldiers, every month. 25,000 to 30,000 soldiers. It's impossible. That's half a stadium. Take a big football stadium. Take half of those people in a stadium, and they're wiped out. They're killed every month. It's crazy. That war is crazy. It would have never happened with me, and it didn't happen for 4 years. No, if they come in through a certain country or any country, or if we think they're building mills for whether it's fentanyl or cocaine. I hear Colombia, the country of Colombia, is making cocaine. They have cocaine manufacturing plants, okay? And then they sell us their cocaine. We appreciate that very much. But yeah, anybody that's doing that and selling it into our country is subject to attack.
Not necessarily just Venezuela.
No, not just Venezuela. No. Venezuela's been very bad. Venezuela's been really bad in something else, probably worse than most, but a lot of other people do it too. They would send murderers into our country. They would empty their jails into our country. They sent people into our country that we don't want. They sent their drug dealers and their drug people into our country. They sent people from their mental institutions into our country, and we're getting them out. That was bad. That was real bad. And they also sent drugs. Yeah.
On Tim Walz, Mr. President, do you think he should resign over the fraud scandal in his state?
And who should?
Tim Walz, over the fraud scandal in his state.
Look, I think the man's a grossly incompetent man. I thought that from the day I watched J.D. destroy him in the debate. I was saying, who was more incompetent, that man or my man? I had a man and he had a man. They were both incompetent, and I had a man and a woman. I thought she was very incompetent too, but now she's leading the field, and I think she's leading the field in this for the nomination. Anyway, look, that's up to them. That's up to the Democrats. You know, the problem with them is they have really bad policy. And I'm not going to to say what it is because I don't want him to change it necessarily. Because I want to run against it, whether it's not going to be me, it's going to be somebody that's going to probably sitting at this table. Could be a couple of people sitting at this table. Could be a couple of people running together sitting at this table, you know. But I want them to win because we've done a great job for this country, and I want that to be carried forward. And you know, I think we have a tremendous bench, really a tremendous bench. But you know, I think that Waltz is a grossly incompetent man. There's something wrong with him. Okay, there's something wrong with him. And when you look at what he's done with Somalia, which is barely a country, you know, they have no anything. They just run around killing each other. There's no structure. And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all, but I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. It hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes. But this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off, and now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I can say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, has Maduro offered to leave? Yeah.
Come this way. Thank you, press. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Hey guys, keep going around to the right. Thank you guys.
Ya terminaron de hablar, a ver si es que se mueve más ahora. Lo mejor ahora sería esperar que el precio suba a la buy side y ver si deja algún modelo unicornio. Sería como lo mejor que se podría esperar. ¿Cuánto? Probablemente deje... O sea, yo creo que voy a dejar este changing state en 5 minutos. Son 24 puntos. Mm. Que aquí hay como una especie de modelo unicornio. 5 minutos dejo un change in state. Quizá el precio pueda hacer eso. Aunque no tomó la buy side. Si el breaker se respeta y se hace una inversión, eh, podría dar un buen trade. Pero se necesita que se respete el breaker. Con eso me refiero a que el precio eh, no cierre sobre el breaker. Si ya el precio empieza a cerrar sobre el breaker, significa que no va a funcionar. Eso es lo malo, que tienen que ser entradas limpias. Porque por ejemplo aquí en un minuto hice un change in state alcista. Entonces ya es como... Con una entrada limpia me refiero a que por ejemplo aquí el precio baja y que aquí en esta suya ya te dé el retest en el breaker. Porque aquí el precio baja, empieza a moverse un poquito y después empieza a subir. Y la única forma como de confirmar un trade aquí sería como esperar que esto se haga una inversión y tomarlo. Pero ya si empieza a cerrar el precio sobre el breaker, sobre ese borde, que probablemente que no va a funcionar, no va a funcionar esta zona del breaker. Entonces ahí no sería bueno tomar ningún trade ni aunque hiciera una inversión aquí. Y en 5 minutos también había hecho un change in state. Pero lo malo es que no dio continuidad al precio. Tu. Yo creo que lo último que voy a esperar simplemente es que tome la buy side y ver si deja una entrada limpia así. Una entrada que sea bien que se vea bien y esté bien formada para poder tomar un short. Que no ha dejado como nada tan claro, en mi opinión. A lo mejor alguien tomó un buen trade aquí, pero yo en general les voy a ir dando ideas como de lo que voy viendo y esa clase de cosas. Para que puedan apoyar su sesión. Si es que tradean ahora en la tarde, o si no, eh, quizás puedan aprender algún concepto, alguna cosa. Vamos a ver si ahora por fin agarra la buy side. Quizás si deja una inversión o algo así. Podría ser un buen trade. Pero si, igual se necesita sí que tome primero esa liquidez. Porque si no queda, es como tener un punto de interés del precio y entrar en contra. Como que queda flotando la posibilidad de que el precio se vuelva y vaya a tomar esa liquidez. Entonces mejor que la tome, se quita esa posibilidad y luego ya se entra en venta. Por eso aumenta la probabilidad de un trade cuando se, se toma un trade o un setup después de que reaccione a alguna liquidez básicamente. Aquí ya tomó la buy set. Por ejemplo aquí si dejara dos casos, uno, primero deja una FDG, después deja una inversión y además de eso deja un change in state en un minuto, se puede tomar un trade en venta. Segundo caso, si el precio no deja un inversión, pero deja un change in state y a la vez deja un FDG, entonces también es un buen trade. Y como objetivo y como TP se podría usar este mínimo de acá. Porque no hay ningún equal low, ¿verdad? Creo que no. Diría que no. O sea, esto sería como el objetivo que se podría poner. Porque en 15 minutos ya está muy abajo. Por ejemplo, este está muy abajo. 5 minutos, sí creo que es como lo que mejor se podría elegir. Lo mejor sería un equal low, pero es que no hay ninguno. Como que esté al alcance, como que razonablemente esté, que se pueda mover de acá. Definitivamente sería como es el target. Aquí sí puede haber un buen trade ya que tomó uno de los bordes de nuestro rango. Entonces sería un buen, como un trade de mayor probabilidad. Serían 20 puntos. Que lo malo es que no tendríamos como confirmación de changing state en ningún caso si se tomara este inverse. Si es que el precio deja este inverse. Ay, en 5 minutos. Nada. O sea, sería excelente el precio hiciera esto. Subiera, agarrara como ese máximo, bajara, deja ese inverse y se va abajo. Porque nos dejaría probablemente un changing state y aparte una inversión. Aquí solamente estaría mostrando en una inversión si es que se tomara el trade. Ojalá. Ojalá deje una inversión acá para poder usarla como entrada. Según yo, el precio ya está en buena zona como para poder hacer una venta. Y aparte no se está apoyando en nada, ¿no? Como en el OB de 15, pero... Aquí sería aún mejor el trade si se da. Ya que nos dejaría un changing state de 5, o sea, un changing state de 1 minuto. Entonces ya tendríamos como varias confluencias. Pues tendríamos primera confluencia, que estamos en zona premium, Además, después de que se tomó la Bayside, ya tenemos dos confluencias. O sea, es que si se tomó la Bayside, obviamente está ahí en Premium. Entonces, como. Ya, pero se tomó una confluencia, que ya se tomó la Bayside. Segunda confluencia, tendremos un Chinchin Stay de 1 minuto. Y tercera confluencia, tendremos una inversión de 1 minuto. Lo único que podría hacer aún mejor del trade sería que el take profit fuera unos mínimos iguales. Sería un buen trade. Y obviamente un trade que fuera así como aún mejor sería un vuelo unicornio. Ahí hay como un mini. eh, como un muy mini inversión, pero la verdad es que como esos PDR no los tomo cuando son muy chicos, porque cuando son muy chicos no son tan relevantes. Ojalá deje este trade porque igual estaría bueno. Incluso dejaría un breaker ahí. ¿Cuál sería este? Si es que cierra por debajo de ese mínimo. Pero me gustaría entrar en esta inversión. Se puede entrar en esa inversión, entrar en... Es que el precio ya está dejando entrar, pues es el tema. Porque si ya te deja este breaker, ya podía entrar. Hay varias formas de entrar. Se puede entrar en esta inversión cuando lo forme. Apenas lo forme, entrar al mercado. Si deja un FG acá, con el breaker, esperar el retest a ese FG con el breaker, que sería ahí la entrada sería acá abajo. También se podría poner un stop ahí, un stop un poco más arriba. Hay varias formas de entrar. Pero en general creo que no debe... En general no está dejando modelo unicornio, porque no dejó ningún FBG ya. Solamente dejaría el breaker así como... Sería como por tener otro PDRay que confirme el cambio de dirección. Pero la verdad... si se pudiera decir de alguna forma, la cereza al pastel sería este inversión. Pues este mínimo se puede usar como un break-even. Aunque ya estaría llegando al TP, pero... Aquí hay un FBG, igual se puede usar como break-even, pero yo usaría ese mínimo. Claro, el stop se podría poner ahí arriba, al borde del breaker. Es como esas dos opciones. Ojalá deje la inversión para que nos dé alguna entrada, porque si no, probablemente no nos va a dejar ninguna entrada. Porque ya entrar, por ejemplo, entrar en compra acá arriba, ya no lo veo tan bonito. Esta inversión si lo hace, ahí sí voy a tomar el trade. Sí, sí. Cinco minutos. 5 minutos y un FBG acá. Pero sería casi la misma casi el mismo punto de entrada. Puede ser igual es malo que haya un FBG 5 minutos ahí. Están prácticamente los cierres del FBG de 5 minutos y el de 1 minuto casi en la misma parte. El tema es que en tema de tiempo estarían bien desfasados porque si en un minuto hace el inversión, en 5 minutos le podrían todavía quedar 4 minutos para que cierre la vela, entonces igual estarían como bien desfasados. Pero parece que el precio no, como que le está costando inversar eso. Acá hay un dilema ahí, po. O se toma la inversión de 5 o se toma el de 1. Si se toma el de 5, uno se puede quedar fuera del trade por intentar esperar más y no haber tomado el de 1 minuto. El precio está bien lento. El problema es que ya pasaron 2 horas, po. No sé las 5. El tema es que igual estaría como el setup ahí. Queda 1 minuto. Claro, es que en 5 minutos el cierre sería como por debajo de eso. Sería la siguiente vela. O sea, si la siguiente vela de 1 minuto cierra abajo esa línea, coincide obviamente con que el precio dejaría la inversión de 1 minuto y a la vez la inversión de 5 minutos. Sería una buena confluencia. O sea, que el precio cierre bajo esta línea que marqué. Vamos a ver si lo hace o no. O sea, o sigue respetando. El stop podría ser en ese alto también. Ahí se sacaría un súper buen ratio. más arriba. Sinceramente creo que es buena idea como poner algo más chico, algo más pequeño y simplemente ir como por este mínimo, yo diría. Así, porque si no es que si no va a ser demasiado movimiento y no lo va a terminar dando. Esa es la cosa. Pues la verdad está respetando el FDG 5 minutos. Y en 15 minutos todavía no cierro la vela. Se consolidó caleta. Debe ser por el horario. Más arriba está el New York AM High. El problema es 5 minutos porque si ahora deja la inversión de 1 minuto, en 5 minutos a la vela todavía le faltarían 3 minutos. Para ver si es que deja la inversión o sigue respetando. Si sigue respetando, entonces probablemente si se toma el inversión sea como un stop. Pero si se toma esta inversión de 5 minutos, la probabilidad igual sube harto más de que pueda ir a tomarse ese mínimo. Lo ideal sería como que se confluenciaran las temporalidades, pero igual puede pasar cualquier cosa al final. Puta, la verdad quiero esperar el setup. O sea, no quiero irme de la sesión sin el setup. Siento que es buen setup, aunque se está demorando bastante, sí. Sería excelente que lo hicieran 5 minutos, sí. El problema es que Bueno, yo creo que habría que jugársela nomás en un minuto. El problema es que el ratio es bien malo. El precio se empezó a consolidar caleta en esta zona. Igual ahí dejó una inversión, pero no tiene buena pinta. O está formando la inversión, pero no tiene buena pinta. El que sí tiene buena pinta es este de acá. El tema es que el precio como que no está queriendo dejar el setup. Voy a dejar el directo hasta aquí nomás, la verdad como que no quiere dejar la entrada. Creo que quiere comer por el high de Nueva York, high de Nueva York de la mañana. Creo que ese es como el target que tenía el precio, pero no está queriendo como dejar este inverso. Y quizás podría dejar uno más arriba o algo así, pero no me parece tan buena idea tomar uno más arriba. Creo que el más correcto es este que está acá. Pero ya se pasó por media hora. Ya se pasó por media hora la sesión y no quiso dejarlo, así que simplemente voy a dejar la sesión hasta aquí. Ya llevo varios días como sin trade, pero es que no salió como setup tan claro.